and syndicates that worked with him, as well as the PR companies that helped cleanse his physical and digital image in the Philippines.
Senator Legarda would like to read her sponsorship speech, co-sponsorship speech.
Senator Loni Legarda is recognized.
Dito nakalista.
Thank you, Mr. President. Actually, just a few minutes ago, Senator Ontiveros, Senator Cayetano Pia, and this representation were asking about the two laws which are equally important, the amendment to this online sexual exploitation and the two trafficking laws which we also offered here. And actually, we were discussing how would the selling of images of a child or a person in a manner that would affect or exploit the person, would that be considered just online sexual exploitation or trafficking the image of a child? Because trafficking, as I understand it, would need to be the physical human trafficking, but because of AI, would this also be considered trafficking? At ano po ang mas mahigpit, mas mahirap, mas mabigat na parusa? Is it online sexual exploitation and the law as we are amending it, or the second expanded Anti-Trafficking in Persons Act? But this will come about later when we discuss this on the amendments and the interpellations. So, long before I entered public service way back in 1998, Mr. President, I had a program called Inside Story where we did a documentary on a book written by a Filipina who discussed human trafficking. I was in my 20s, perhaps early 30s. The title of the book then was They Are So Sweet, Sir. And it documented stories of trafficked Filipinas in the Philippines and abroad. I wish I could find that book of the 1970s and 80s so that it could also help us in trying to see how way back then, when there was no technology that we have now, trafficking was already, human trafficking was already a global and worldwide scourge and the biggest, perhaps, threat to humankind. So we see how syndicates prey on the vulnerability, on poverty, how victims are silenced by fear, shame, and coercion. I listened to stories 30, 40 years ago of women and children lured by promises of a better life only to be trapped by syndicates that thrive on secrecy, intimidation, and impunity. Through their stories, I learned that perpetrators do not stand still. They move with technology, hide behind new fronts, exploit every gap in our laws. That's why we have the two trafficking laws. One was 2009, the other was 2012, and perhaps it needs amendment again. Every weakness in coordination and every moment of institutional delay. When criminals become more creative, and yes, they are, the state must be more deliberate, stronger in policy, smarter in enforcement, and more united in action across agencies, communities, and borders. This is why we champion Republic Act 10364, the expanded Anti-Trafficking in Persons Act, in 2012, but it's been 14 years, so perhaps we should look into it again. To strengthen our laws, to tighten accountability, to build a more coordinated national response against an evolving crime. Today, the same logic applies with even greater urgency to online child sexual abuse and exploitation. Republic Act 11930, Anti-Online Sexual Abuse or Exploitation of Children, or SAIC, the Anti-Child Sexual Abuse or Exploitation Materials, CESAM Act. These were landmark legislation, but the landscape has shifted quickly. Abusers now operate through encrypted platforms, digital payment channels, cross-border hosting services that did not exist then or did not dominate just only a few years ago. The harm is no longer confined to a specific place. It is recorded, replicated, traded, leaving a digital footprint that follows a child for life. The proposed measure to amend RA 11930 strengthens the existing legislation by ensuring that the government can act faster and more decisively against online child abuse. It improves coordination among agencies and requires greater responsibility from platforms that operate in or reach the Philippines, and equips authorities to secure and use digital evidence to identify victims, to build cases, and to work with foreign partners when crimes reach beyond our borders. It also backs enforcement with clearer accountability measures, dedicated support for child safeguarding so protection does not depend on patchwork efforts, but on a stronger, more reliable system. The expanded Anti-Online OSAIC and SESAIM Act of 2025 is a necessary step in keeping our laws responsive to evolving technology and cross-border criminality. And in supporting this measure, we affirm that the Philippines will not allow digital spaces and financial channels or jurisdictional distance to become safe havens for those who profit from the abuse of children. I'm therefore grateful to Senator Risa Ontiveros, Senator Pia Cayetano, who have been more than helpful and supportive in trying to bring this to our national and international attention, especially now, Mr. President, when it was discovered that the convicted late American pedophile, Jeffrey Epstein, had operated in the Philippines quite recently, 2010. We were already in the Senate. And as I speak now, you see it on social media, whether these are the wealthiest billionaires in the dollar sense, whether they belong to royalty in different parts of Europe and the world, whether they are the most elected and respected highest officials of countries we have alliances with. They purportedly, allegedly, are named in millions of pages of the Epstein files, only to discover that he had a network in the Philippines in 2010. I, together with my colleagues, will file a resolution to ask the Department of Justice and the NBI, perhaps a Committee on Women, to look into this, and I will file that resolution because that's very recent, 15 years ago. And we already had the anti-trafficking laws then. So we must see, because they even worked with a public relations company to cleanse their image. Who is that? I'm sure meron yan NBI. At anong mga network ang ginagamit dito? Hindi naman yan sex network lahat. Iba ang front negosyo. Ibang mga sektor. This is so recent, Mr. President. So, nakayapak dito, hindi ko alam kung siya mismong personal o magalamay niya na ang convicted, na namatay o pinatay, na pedophile, na financial wizard daw noon ay may network sa Pilipinas. So, I'm glad that this is so timely, Senator Ontiveros, that you had filed the amendments to the OSAIC and the OSASAIM, and I would like to look on the trafficking laws as well. Before 2010, another one 2012, and I will file the resolution to look onto the Epstein footprint in the Philippines and organizations and syndicates that worked with him, as well as the PR companies that helped cleanse his physical and digital image in the Philippines, per the reports I've read. Having said that, I thank Your Honor for listening. Thank you.